Hi, welcome back to the Megala Mukais. So Seder Pesach is right here on the horizon. Everybody's busy getting ready, schlepping boxes, dishes, koshering. I want to share a beautiful and deep thought. You're welcome to share it with your family and friends at the Seder. It's called The Four Sons Are All Me. How the Seder Pesach accesses the inner child. So we're on a psychological journey today. So everybody knows, everybody has their own favorite part of the Seder, but because it's a family event, so when you start talking about Keneged Arba Banim Dibret Torah, the Torah speaks about four sons. So the four sons are famous. Echad Chacham, Echad Rasha, Echad Tam, Echad She'eino Yodeh Lishol. The wise son, the wicked son, the simple son, and the son that does not even know how to ask. So, of course, it's fascinating to look at historical Haggadahs and see how in different societies they depicted each one of these characters, what constitutes a righteous or a wise or a wicked son. My sister generously refers to me as the erudite son. I appreciate that. Once years ago, we had a Seder Pesach with somebody who had really sold his soul for the dollar. And it just happened to come out that when we went around the table that he turned out to be the wicked son. So that was sort of fun. Anyway, it's definitely a highlight of the Seder talking about these four sons. I, Baruch Hashem, have 7 sons. I don't have any wicked sons. And I want to talk about our children, our love for our children. And I want to go even deeper than that. I want to talk about something called the inner child. So I found some great pictures of the inner child. And this is a 20th century psychology thing. Freud talked about the id and what's going on inside of us, the subconscious. And I want to share how the Torah itself and the way Chazal plumbed the depths of the Torah to bring out its wisdom. And I have here an interpretation of the Shulchan Aruch, which it's not exactly pshat, but I really think that part of what Chazal enacted, and even what the Torah commanded us, V'yigat lebincha b'yom hahu, that the way we tell over in Magid, we tell over the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim, that we tell it over not only on a cognitive level, on an intellectual level, and not only the feelings, but we actually do the deeds. We eat the matzah and the bitter herbs and the charaises. And so the message that we're giving over to our children is on the deepest level, on really all levels of existence. We're communicating with words and sharing feelings, and we're singing, and we're eating, and we're doing, and it mamish gets in our kishkas, right? The matzah is in your belly and you feel it there. But besides those things that are happening in our relationship and our communications with others, I believe that the Shulchan Aruch here is even alluding to our relationship to our inner child, which all of us have within us, voices of the inner child. We're adults at whatever stage of life, but there's still a small voice, the voice of a child within us. So listen to the Shulchan Aruch, Siman Taf Ayin Gimel Siv Zayin. It's talking about this part of the Seder when we're preparing for Manishtana. Moizgin loy miyad koisheni. So this is when we pour the second cup of wine, which is unusual because usually after making Kiddush, we'd make a meal. But instead of making a meal, we're pouring a second cup of wine. So that the children will ask, why are we drinking a second cup of wine before the meal? If the son is not wise enough to ask, so his father teaches him. And if he doesn't have a child, so his wife should ask him. And if his wife doesn't ask him, or he doesn't have a wife, he's all alone, Seder Pesach, he should ask himself. And even if they're all chachamim, they're all wise and learned people, Talmidei chachamim, they still ask these questions. And there's a famous chakira, a discussion, what's the difference between the mitzvah every night to recall the Exodus from Egypt versus the Sipur Yetzias Mitzrayim, the retelling of the story of the Exodus from Egypt that we do on Pesach. And one of the answers is it's the question and answer. That every night of the year we say Kriyat Shema, and we mention L'man Tizkor es Yom Tzeitcha Me'eretz Mitzrayim, to remember all the days of your life, you're going forth out of Egypt. But on this night, at Seder Pesach, we ask and we answer. Manishtana, why is this night different from all other nights? And we answer, Abadim Hayinu, we were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt. But the Shulchan Aruch has said that not only are we asking and answering amongst ourselves with our children, our wife, but also if we're in the absence of such a question, in the absence of such a situation, it's just a person, a learned person, and he's by himself making Seder Pesach, he should still ask. So why should he ask if he already knows the answer? And so my answer to that question is that he's giving voice to the inner child. The inner child is asking, what's going on? Why are we doing this? Why am I eating the matzah? Why are we dipping? Why are we eating the bitter herbs? Why are we reclining? So we're asking ourselves these questions regardless, even if we're all by ourselves. So I want to go even deeper. I've quoted here the 4 different psukim that the Torah uses. This idea, Chazal said that the Torah speaks about 4 sons. So it's because the Torah describes the Seder Pesach and this question and answer 4 different times in the Parsha, in Shmos and in Dvarim. And there's a Mechilta here, which is a Midrash, which talks about the language that the different sons are using. And so Mazot, the simple son, just says, what is this? Zet tinok tipesh. The Midrash is a little bit harsh with him and calls him stupid. Tipesh. She'enu yodea la'amik she'elato. He doesn't know how to ask a deep question, and he asks just a closed, very straightforward, prima facie question. The sotem b'sho'el mazot. What is this? U'makom acher, hu omer, elsewhere the Torah says, ma ha'edot v'chukim v'mishpatim. There the Torah is analytical. There's a very wise son who asks very specific questions. Harezot she'elat ben chacham. That's the question of a wise son. Dibra Torah keneged arba'a banim. So the Torah spoke about 4 different sons. Rasha, she'eino yodea lish'ol, sho'el derech stuma. Okay, the simple son, the Midrash refers to him as someone who asks in a abstruse way. Ve'ashoyel derech chochma, and one who asks very wisely. So my addition and my insight that I'm sharing this with you tonight and this year for your Seder Pesach is that, again, all of these voices are your own, and they're coming from within you. Even if you're making the Seder by yourself, maybe because of Corona, whatever it is. So you might have children and you love them all. That's important, to love all your children and to accept them. But now I'm going deeper into our psychology and our inner world and our inner child. And I'm talking about the voices of your inner child. And you have an intelligent inner child. Maybe he's a 10th grader or even a 7th grader, but he's smart. And so he asks you, what are these laws and regulations and these customs? Why do we do each one of these things? So there's a voice of intelligence within us. But there are other voices within us. There's a voice that's just like, what is this? Why am I doing this? A very simple voice. There's a voice, she'enu yodea lish'ol. There's a feeling inside of us that really has no words. So it's a wordless question that's just making us feel maybe uncomfortable, or why am I here? Or what is this about? Or I feel strange or uncomfortable. And again, it's wordless. And then, of course, there's the Rasha, there's the wicked son. And that's also, of course, a voice within us. That's the most explicit voice of the Yetzer Hara, right? Our evil inclination. That's basically in opposition to anything I have to do. Why do I have to do it? I don't want to do it. I'm in opposition to any authority or obligation. No, I don't want to. So all of these voices are really always within us, but particularly if we're sitting down to do something constructive and something dictated according to Jewish law and custom. So we have all these inner voices of inner children that are within us. And so I put here what I consider a really beautiful picture at the bottom, which it's a parent welcoming a child and preparing for an embrace. But really, again, it's a picture of the inner child and our opportunity to be our own parents of our own inner child, and to create the space and the welcoming and the acceptance. So of course, that's important for your real life children, to give them space and welcoming and nurturing and acceptance whoever they are, whether they're the wicked son or the simple son or whatever they are. But we're talking tonight about the inner child and accepting within ourselves that I have these different voices. And I'm not just a tzaddik, I'm not just a great righteous person. I'm complicated and I have other voices. And so the resolution of this, what I consider conflict of these many voices within us, and I'm not talking about Sybil here, who had 16, split personality, and I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a healthy person, but who carries with them in their maturity also voices from their past and their inner child. And that's, I just think, a part of being human. So anyway, the resolution is, if we back up, these words of the Haggadah are prefaced by the following: Baruch hamakoim Baruch Hu, Baruch shenasan Torah la'amo Yisrael Baruch Hu, keneged arba banim dibra Torah. So before the Haggadah said that the Torah spoke about these four sons, it blessed God. Baruch hamakom. Blessed is the omnipresent. Baruch Hu, blessed is he that we can't even understand. We can't refer to him even as you. We sometimes do, but here referring to as he, the hidden one. Blessed is the one who gave us the Torah to his people Israel. Blessed is he who did that and who spoke to us in this personal way. But by using the expression Baruch Hamakom, okay, and we know that expression, that's one of the names of God. It's not really a name of God. Of course, the Hebrew word makom means place, okay? But when we say hamakom, like when we say lo aleinu, to comfort a mourner, we say hamakom yenachem eschem. So hamakom is an appellation. It is a nomenclature that we use for God. And it means, again, he is the space of the universe. And Rashi teaches us it's not that the universe contains God, God contains the universe. Ein ha'olam mekoimo, hu mekoimo shel olam. But I want to share today, in closing, a final thought about this word makom. And the word makom, you can see mem kuf vav mem. The gematria of such a word is 186. So let's take a look at that number 186. And let's look at the name, the Shem Etzem, the Shem Yud Ke Vav Ke. And I've written it out here: Yud squared plus Hey squared plus Vav squared plus Hey squared. So Yud, of course, is 10. 10 times 10 is 100. Hey times Hey is 25. Vav times Vav is 36. And another 25. 125, 36, and 25 is 186. So what does that mean? So we've taken the oisios, the holy letters of God's name, and we've squared each one. So we've taken it into a higher dimension. As opposed to being just a letter on the page, it's become, I'm going to call it space. You might claim it had to be cubed for that, but at least here it's squared. So we've raised the dimension of the Shem Hashem being a makom, being a place. And it's an active place of welcoming, of nurturing, of creating room and space and acceptance for all these arba banim. So that's Baruch HaMakom Baruch Hu, Baruch Shenasan Torah L'Amo Yisrael. The Torah HaKadoshah is so big and deep and wide. There's a place for all of us to find our place in the Torah. Baruch Hu, Keneged Arba Banim Dibra Torah. The Torah speaks to all of us, all of our the members of our community, but to all of us, our whole selves, to all of me, because the four sons, they're all within me. And so I'm giving you this tool to embrace all the people at your Seder. There's a place for everybody at our Seder Pesach. And even if you're all alone, that's what we learned tonight. Even if you're all alone at the Seder Pesach, or it's just you and your spouse, whatever, but you need to ask and you need to answer and you need to accept and embrace and give space. And that's what Hamakom, that's what Hashem has given us the capacity to do, to create space for these conflicted voices within us. Because we have conflicted voices. We have a Yetzer Hara. He's the opposition. Whatever we want, he wants the opposite. So we got to deal with that, with those conflicts. But Baruch HaMakom Baruch Hu, we have the Torah, we have Hashem to help us to deal with these things. So I wish everybody a Chag Kosher v'Sameach. שנזכה לגאולה שלמה, אבותינו נגאלו בניסן וכן עתידים להיגאל. Nisan is the time for Geula Shlema. Let it just be. Shana Tova.